The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Elena Reyes walked forward. Her footsteps echoed across the polished floor as thousands of alien eyes tracked her movement. The judgment platform rose from the center of the room, a circular stage bathed in harsh white light from above. Elena stood straight, her diplomatic uniform crisp against her dark skin, her face betraying no fear despite being the first human to face the full council. Species 4291, designation, human, Ambassador Elena Reyes of Earth, announced the Chamber AI in hundreds of languages simultaneously. You stand before the Galactic Council, governing authority of the 7 sectors. Above her, 12 massive thrones formed a semicircle, each occupied by a different alien species. High Counselor Vostar, with his multiple eye stalks and blue-gray skin, leaned forward. His voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Humanity stands accused of violating Directive 947, he said, enormous fingers tapping a display. Your unauthorized colonization of the Proxima Centauri system disrupts the carefully maintained galactic balance. Elena took a deep breath before responding. With respect, High Counselor, Earth received formal approval for the Proxima settlement. She gestured, and her wrist device projected documents into the air. These records show Council authorization granted 8 months ago. Whispers rippled through the watching crowd. Over 5,000 representatives from across the galaxy observed from tiered seating that rose like a wave around the central floor. Hovering camera drones circulated, broadcasting the proceedings to trillions across inhabited space. Forgeries, hissed Representative Cruel of the Mavrith Dominion, his insectoid mandibles clicking in agitation. Humans were granted observer status only. You were never approved for expansion. Elena maintained her composure despite the hostility radiating from the council members. I have submitted the original authorization codes, which can be verified through your own systems. The security footage she had brought showing council officials accepting bribes from the Mavrith to block human expansion suddenly disappeared from her files. Her backup evidence vanished as she watched. The hearing wasn't fair. It was theater. Beneath her diplomatic insignia, Elena activated a hidden emergency transmitter. A signal undetectable to Council technology raced toward Earth. Prejudged. Setup. Danger imminent. High Counselor Vostar rose, towering 12 feet above the chamber floor. The evidence has been examined and found to be falsified. For crimes against galactic order, this council finds humanity guilty. I invoke Article 89 of the Galactic Charter, Elena declared clearly. The right to appeal and present evidence before primitives must learn their place, Vostar interrupted, raising a massive hand. The punishment must serve as an example to all who would disrupt our order. Energy fields suddenly encircled Elena, lifting her several feet off the platform. The crowd fell silent, many leaning forward in anticipation. This violates every diplomatic protection guaranteed by your own charter, Elena said, her voice steady despite the growing heat around her. Earth will not. Blue-white flames erupted around her, engulfing her body. The council expected screams, pleas for mercy, or collapse, the typical reaction when they made examples of lesser species. Instead, Ambassador Reyes stood tall within the fire. Her eyes, somehow visible through the flames, remained fixed on Vostar in silent accusation. Her final act, activating a quantum entanglement device sewn into her very cells, ensured that Earth witnessed everything in real time. The flames burned hotter. Her flesh blackened. Still, she did not scream. When it was over, nothing remained but ash drifting to the floor of the council chamber. Let this serve as notice, Vostar announced to the silent crowd. The expansion of primitive species will be controlled according to council decree. In the silence that followed, council members congratulated themselves on a message well delivered. None noticed the small monitoring drone that detached from the ceiling, carrying complete records of their crime back toward human space. On Earth, billions had watched their ambassador burn alive. Martial law was declared within minutes. Military reserves mobilized across the planet. Ships, far more than the Council knew Earth possessed, rose to orbit in formations that suggested years of preparation for this very moment. In the White House Situation Room, President Maxwell stood before Earth's military leadership. The room smelled of coffee and tension. Screens showed starships moving into position around the planet. "We knew this day might come," the president said, her face grim. "Though we hoped for peace, we prepared for war." Admiral Torres, head of Earth's Space Force, nodded. "Operation Retribution is ready. Our stealth fleets have been in position near key council worlds for months. And our infiltration units?" asked the president. "In place for years," confirmed General Park. 30% of their defense network is compromised. We can strike at will." The president moved to the central table and placed her hand on a biometric scanner. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a small red button protected by a clear case. "Elena knew the risks," she said softly. "She volunteered for this mission knowing it might end this way." She flipped open the case and pressed the button. Across Earth's military installations, coded orders flashed on secure terminals. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, ships began powering weapons systems. On distant worlds, human operatives disguised as various alien species received their activation signals. The president's address to humanity was broadcast globally just minutes later. It consisted of just 5 words: "They have chosen their fate." Within an hour, Earth's response began. And in the coming days, the Galactic Council would learn that humans were not the primitive species they had judged them to be. They would learn that humanity had anticipated this betrayal, had planned for it, and had prepared a response that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The war had begun. 3 days after Ambassador Elena Reyes burned to ash on the council floor, High Counselor Vostar called an emergency meeting. The crystalline chamber, normally filled with representatives from thousands of worlds, held only the 12 senior council members. Their faces reflected in the polished black floor as they took their seats. "The humans have gone silent," Vostar announced, his eye stalk sweeping the room. No diplomatic protests, no military movements detected near their system. Their communication networks show only internal broadcasts about mourning their ambassador. Representative Krull clicked his mandibles nervously. "Perhaps they understood our message. They know their place now." Admiral Zecht, the military commander of the council forces, shook his massive head. His gray skin rippled with doubt. "I recommend we dispatch observation ships to monitor their homeworld. Silence is unlike any species we have disciplined before." "Unnecessary," said Vostar. "They are primitive, barely a century into space travel. Their handful of ships pose no threat to council authority." Life across council space continued normally. Trade vessels traveled between systems. Military patrols maintained their regular routes. Administrative centers processed the daily business of governing thousands of worlds. Then, without warning, 17 critical resource planets went silent simultaneously. Communication networks failed. Transport ships arriving found orbital stations empty. Mining operations halted. But no signs of violence or struggle. A systematic communications failure. Admiral Zecht assured the council during an urgent session. "Our technicians will restore contact within days." Then came the disappearances. On the military fortress world of Karak Prime, 5 senior generals failed to report for duty. Security recordings showed their quarters empty, beds unslept in. On research station Helios, 8 leading scientists working on advanced weapons technology simply vanished between security checks. More disturbing were the political vanishings. Council intelligence operatives stopped transmitting from their assigned sectors. Regional governors were reported missing. In each case, security systems recorded nothing unusual, just empty rooms where people had been moments before. On the Mavrith homeworld, Representative Krull awoke to find his palatial estate surrounded not by his personal security team, but by empty armor standing at attention. Inside each helmet was a small holographic projection showing Elena Reyes burning. Fear spread faster than any official could contain it. Across council space, financial systems began collapsing as vast wealth simply vanished from secured accounts. Supply chains faltered. Food shipments failed to arrive at densely populated worlds, triggering panic and riots. "This is clearly human sabotage," Vostar declared during an emergency session, his voice echoing in a chamber now half empty, as representatives fled to their homeworlds. "I am dispatching our Grand Fleet to the Sol system immediately. We will crush this primitive species before their tricks become truly problematic." The Grand Fleet, 15,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled, departed for Earth with great ceremony. Vostar broadcast his message across all channels. The humans have responded to our just punishment with cowardly sabotage. Their resistance ends now. The message received no response. When the Grand Fleet reached the halfway point to Sol, deep in interstellar space, every ship simultaneously received the same transmission, a continuous loop showing Elena Reyes burning, accompanied by a simple countdown timer. Admiral Zect, commanding from the flagship Inevitable Dominion, ordered all vessels to battle readiness, prepare for possible ambush. All weapons systems. As the countdown reached 0, a blinding flash of light engulfed the fleet. When it faded, 5,000 ships had simply vanished. The remaining vessels found their navigation systems compromised, weapons offline and life support systems failing. On their command bridges, captains and crews discovered messages written in their own blood across display screens and walls. We haven't even started yet. Panic spread through the surviving ships. Some captains ordered immediate retreat. Others attempted to continue toward Earth. Many lost control of their vessels entirely as propulsion systems activated without commands, sending ships in random directions. Admiral Zect managed to gather 3,000 ships from the scattered fleet. As they limped back toward Council space, long-range sensors detected no sign of human vessels. No attack had been visible, no weapons fire detected, yet a third of the mightiest fleet in galactic history had disappeared without trace. The returning ships found Council worlds in disarray. Food riots had broken out on 30 major planets. Power grids failed without explanation. Defense systems activated against phantom targets, wasting precious resources. In the Council chamber, now protected by 3 times the normal security, Vostar faced growing opposition. You executed an ambassador without proper trial, accused Representative Giral of the Sentient Alliance. You violated our most sacred laws, and now we face an enemy that can strike anywhere without detection. These are tricks, Vostar shouted, slamming his fist against his throne. Sabotage and misdirection by a primitive species too weak to face us directly. In a desperate move to calm the growing panic, Vostar called for a public address. As billions watched across Council space, he stood before the Grand Assembly to declare the human threat contained. The Council has stood for 10,000 years, he proclaimed. We will not be threatened by a species barely out of its planetary cradle. Halfway through his speech, the chamber lights flickered. When they stabilized, a human woman stood silently beside him at the podium. Her presence, impossible given the security, froze everyone in shock. Ambassador Reyes sends her regards, said Director Liana Blackwood of Earth's Intelligence Division. Before security could react, she placed a small device on the podium and vanished as suddenly as she had appeared. The device projected the complete, unedited footage of Elena's execution across every communication channel in Council space. For the first time, countless species saw what had truly happened, how a legitimate diplomat had been murdered without cause, how evidence had been falsified, how the Council had violated its own most sacred laws. The transmission ended with a simple message in all known languages. The Council lied. Humanity responds. As riots erupted across Council worlds, not against humans, but against Council authority, Admiral Zect sent an urgent communication to Vostar. High Counselor, our deep space sensors have detected human ships emerging from folded space within our own systems. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They've somehow built a fleet that rivals our own, hidden from our detection. Impossible, Vostar spat. Their industrial capacity. They're not alone, interrupted Zect, his voice trembling with an emotion never before heard from the stoic military leader. Fear. Species we thought extinct after opposing Council authority centuries ago now fly alongside human ships. The communication ended abruptly as Zect's command center exploded, victim of sabotage from within. Across Council space, massive human warships materialized in high orbit over key worlds. They made no demands. They fired no weapons. They simply waited, an unspoken threat hanging over civilization itself. The war had only just begun. The central command bunker beneath the Council fortress on Dominion Prime buzzed with frantic activity. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across worried faces as Vostar entered, flanked by his remaining loyal guards. Status screens showed red warning signals across all sectors of Council space. Tell me how a primitive species that just discovered faster than light Travel 50 years ago has crippled our civilization. In less than a week, Vostar demanded, his voice booming across the command center. No one answered. No one could explain how human ships had appeared simultaneously in hundreds of systems, how Council defense networks had been compromised, how human agents had infiltrated the most secure facilities in the galaxy. The remaining fleet commanders are requesting orders, said a young officer, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Human warships have positioned themselves above 47 core worlds but have taken no hostile action. Why don't they attack? Muttered Vostar. What are they waiting for? The answer came from an unexpected source. Every screen in the command center suddenly displayed the same image, the face of President Maxwell of Earth. Her expression was not triumphant or angry, but calm and determined. People of the Galactic Council, she began, speaking directly to the trillions watching across Council space. 1 week ago, your leaders murdered our ambassador in violation of all diplomatic law. Today I address not your corrupt council, but you, the citizens they have misled for centuries. The screen split, showing evidence recovered from the Council's own secure archives. Records of peaceful species systematically undermined or destroyed when they developed technologies that threatened Council control. Proof of resources channeled to benefit a small elite, while outer worlds suffered in poverty. Documentation of Council security forces creating artificial conflicts to justify military occupation of resource-rich systems. Humanity knew about the Council long before official first contact. President Maxwell continued, For decades we monitored your operations, documented your crimes, and prepared for inevitable conflict with an organization that has systematically eliminated dozens of emerging civilizations before us. The broadcast showed archaeological evidence of the Elysian civilization, AD, peaceful species whose ruins had been discovered on Mars, annihilated by Council forces 30,000 years ago for developing technology that would have freed member worlds from resource dependency. The Council recorded the Elysians as having destroyed themselves, the President explained. We found the truth buried beneath our own soil. Their knowledge helped us prepare for this moment. The revelation stunned billions across Council space. Many had studied the Elysian tragedy as a cautionary tale of self-destruction. We offer you a choice the Council never gave us, President Maxwell concluded. Join us in building a new galactic order based on true cooperation, or remain loyal to those who have exploited you for millennia. The choice must be yours. As the broadcast ended, communication networks across Council space exploded with discussion, debate, and calls for revolution. On dozens of worlds, citizens marched on Council administrative centers. Military units facing the truth about the government they served began to stand down or actively join the revolutionaries. Inside the command bunker, Vostar raged at his subordinates. This is propaganda. Counter-broadcast immediately. Deploy security forces to suppress these rebellions. Sir, said the communications officer, most of our broadcast networks are no longer responding to our commands, and security forces on 18 worlds report that their weapons will not fire. How is this possible? Vostar demanded. The answer came from Admiral Zekt, appearing on a screen despite reports of his death days earlier. Because humans have been among us for decades, High Counselor. They have infiltrated every level of our society. Zekt. Where are you? What is happening? The Admiral's face showed no emotion. I've been aboard the human flagship for 3 days. I've seen the truth of what we've done, what I've done in the Council's name. He paused. But more disturbing is what I've learned about their preparations. What preparations? Vostar asked, dread creeping into his voice. They've operated a program called Deep Replacement for over 50 years, Zekt explained. Humans genetically and cosmetically modified to replace key individuals throughout our civilization. They look like us, sound like us, have our DNA, but they serve Earth. The command center erupted in chaos as officers began looking at each other with sudden suspicion. Who among them might not be who they appeared to be? That's impossible, Vostar insisted. Our security scans would detect such infiltration. The technology came from the Elysians, Zekt replied. The same technology we destroyed them for creating. It allows complete biological mimicry that our scanners cannot detect. Across the room, 3 officers suddenly drew weapons. Guards moved to intercept them, but fell as hidden devices activated throughout the bunker. releasing a gas that affected only Vosthar's species. The High Counselor watched in horror as his loyal forces collapsed around him. How many? He demanded of Zekt. How many infiltrators? Unknown, Zekt replied calmly. But they've had 50 years to replace people. Could be thousands. Could be millions. Every military base, every research facility, every council building likely contains humans disguised as our own people. One of the armed officers approached Vosthar, weapon raised. The human fleet does not need to fire a single shot, High Counselor. We are already everywhere. Who are you? Vosthar asked, backing away. The officer smiled. Commander Thomas Reed, Earth Intelligence Division. I've served as Lieutenant Marvex for 11 years. I've been in this room for every strategic meeting you've held. He gestured toward the remaining officers. We all have. Throughout council space, the same scene played out in command centers, government buildings, and military bases. Trusted officials revealed themselves as human operatives. Defense systems were disabled from within. The mighty council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, collapsed in less than 7 days. On key worlds, massive ground transports emerged from hidden underground bases constructed decades ago by shell companies and maintained in secret. From them came thousands of human soldiers and representatives of species thought long extinct, rescued and hidden by humans who had foreseen this confrontation. Most shocking to Council loyalists were the ships now, appearing in their territory, vessels of advanced design incorporating technologies the Council had suppressed for millennia. Humanity had not only prepared for war, they had recovered knowledge the Council had buried, improved upon it, and built their strategy around technologies their enemy believed lost forever. In orbit above the Council capital, the human flagship Retribution opened communication with all surviving Council facilities. The face that appeared on screens was not President Maxwell, but a middle-aged man with a scar across his right cheek. My name is Commander James Reyes, he said quietly. Ambassador Elena Reyes was my wife. She volunteered for her mission knowing what might happen. Her sacrifice exposed your corruption to the galaxy. He paused, his grief visible despite his control. The Council burned my wife alive to teach humanity its place. Instead, you taught us that our suspicions were correct. You are not worthy of the power you have wielded. Throughout Council territory, human forces secured key facilities without firing a shot. Where resistance occurred, it collapsed quickly against forces that seemed to know every defense, every contingency plan, every secret passage. The revolution was not being televised. It had already happened. Years before the first human diplomat ever set foot in council chambers, the war was over before it truly began. The fortress moon of Iridor hung like a scarred jewel in orbit around the gas giant terminus. For 10,000 years it had served as the council's most secure prison, a place where those who threatened galactic order disappeared forever. Its gleaming black surface bristled with defense systems capable of destroying entire fleets. No prisoner had ever escaped. No attack had ever breached its walls, until today. Commander James Reyes stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as his ship surrounded the fortress moon. Behind him, officers monitored displays showing the status of the operation unfolding across the prison complex. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm despite the tension filling the bridge. "All external defenses neutralized," reported his tactical officer. "Internal security systems are being disabled section by section. Resistance is minimal, and our primary target, located in the maximum security wing. Vital signs stable. Extraction team is 2 minutes from position." James nodded, his face revealing nothing of the emotions churning beneath his controlled exterior. 1 week after his wife had burned to death on the council floor, he stood on the verge of the mission's most critical phase. Deep within Iridor's black stone corridors, a squad of human soldiers moved with practiced precision. They encountered no resistance. The prison guards had been quietly neutralized by operatives who had been in place for years, disguised as maintenance workers and minor officials. The squad reached a heavily reinforced door at the end of a long corridor. The team leader placed a small device against the locking mechanism. It hummed softly, bypassing security protocols that should have been impenetrable. The massive door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a single cell, its walls bare except for a simple bench. On it sat an ancient figure, skin wrinkled with extreme age, eyes cloudy but alert. Despite her frail appearance, she straightened as the soldiers entered. "Ambassador Drake," said the team leader, removing his helmet. "I'm Captain Lopez of Earth Special Forces. We're here to take you home." The old woman's eyes widened slightly. "Home after all this time?" "Yes, ma'am. 97 years, to be exact." Her thin lips curved in a smile that held no humor. "So Earth finally learned the truth about the Council." "We did, Ambassador. Thanks in large part to the warning you managed to send before your capture." Across the galaxy, similar extractions were taking place. From hidden prison complexes, labor camps, and secret research facilities, human forces were recovering people long thought lost. Some were the original diplomats and explorers who had encountered Council forces in Earth's early space exploration days, men and women who had disappeared during first contact, missions that the Council had later erased from all records. Others were members of alien species the Council had declared extinct after they resisted assimilation. Hidden away rather than executed, they had endured decades or centuries of imprisonment while their civilizations were systematically dismantled and their homeworlds stripped of resources. On the bridge of the Retribution, James received confirmation that Ambassador Drake had been safely recovered and was being transported to the ship. "Take us to Nexus Point," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As the ship accelerated away from Iridor, the Fortress Moon's remaining defense systems suddenly activated, firing not at the departing human vessels, but at the prison itself. Massive explosions bloomed across the black surface as centuries of the Council's darkest secrets destroyed themselves, rather than fall into human hands. Hours later, in a secure conference room aboard the Retribution, James sat across from Ambassador Meredith Drake. Despite her age and decades of imprisonment, her mind remained sharp. She listened intently as he explained how her final warning, transmitted just before her capture 97 years ago, had set Earth on its current path. "Your message changed everything," James explained. "When you warned that the Council had destroyed every emerging civilization that developed certain technologies, Earth's leaders realized we needed to appear less advanced than we actually were." Drake nodded slowly. "So all these years, while the Council thought Earth was just learning basic space travel, we were preparing, building hidden fleets, developing technologies based on the Elysian ruins found on Mars, creating the deep replacement program to infiltrate Council society. And my fellow diplomats, the others captured with me?" James's expression softened. "Most died in captivity years ago. You and 3 others are the only survivors from the original contact mission." A sadness passed across Drake's ancient face, quickly replaced by determination. "Then their sacrifices must mean something. Tell me about this new galactic order you're creating." "The Confederation," James said. "Equal representation for all species. Technological development without restriction. True cooperation instead of domination. And the Council leaders who resist? Most have been captured. Vothar and his inner circle have retreated to a hidden facility on Dominion Prime, protected by their most loyal forces." James's expression hardened. "We'll breach their defenses within days." On Dominion Prime, the remaining Council loyalists gathered in a bunker deep beneath the planetary surface. Once powerful leaders now looked haggard and afraid as reports came in of system after system falling to human forces or declaring independence. "How could this happen?" demanded Counselor Jev, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "How could a single primitive species bring down the greatest civilization in galactic history?" Vothar, still imposing despite his fallen status, stared at the tactical displays showing human ships approaching Dominion Prime. "Because we underestimated them. We saw their technological progress and assumed they were like all the others. Naive, trusting, unprepared for the realities of galactic politics. We should have exterminated them when they were first discovered," hissed Cruel, one of the few Council members who had escaped capture. "Like we did with the Elysians and the others who developed too quickly." "It's too late for that now," said Vothar. "But we still have one option remaining." He turned to his military commander. "Is Project Sunfall ready?" The commander nodded grimly. "The weapon is prepared. Once activated, it will create a cascading quantum disruption across human-controlled space. Their ships, their technology, everything based on Elysian principles will fail simultaneously." "And the cost?" asked Jev. "Approximately 30% of all life in the affected sectors will be destroyed by the quantum disturbance." the commander replied matter-of-factly. A regrettable but necessary sacrifice to restore order. Activate it, ordered Vostar without hesitation. The commander moved to a secured console and began the activation sequence. Before he could complete it, the entire bunker shook violently. Alarms blared as the main doors, designed to withstand planetary bombardment, began to glow red with heat. "Impossible," shouted the security chief. "Those barriers cannot be breached." The doors exploded inward with devastating force, filling the room with smoke and debris. When it cleared, human soldiers stood in the ruined entrance, weapons aimed at the council members. Through the smoke walked a figure that made Vostar's blood run cold. Ambassador Meredith Drake, the human diplomat he had personally ordered imprisoned nearly a century ago. "Hello, Vostar," she said, her aged voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "It seems we have unfinished business." Behind her entered Commander James Reyes, his face set in grim determination. "Project Sunfall has been neutralized," James announced. "Your weapon designers have been working for us for decades. Did you really think we wouldn't know about your final option?" "This is not possible," Vostar whispered, his arrogance finally cracking. "How could you have anticipated everything? How could you have infiltrated every level of our society?" Ambassador Drake stepped forward, her eyes burning with the accumulated rage of 97 years. "Because humans have one quality you never understood, Vostar. We learn from history, and our history taught us to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." As council members were led away in restraints, James received a transmission from Earth. President Maxwell's face appeared on his communication device, her expression solemn. "The operation is complete," he reported. "Vostar and the remaining council leaders have been captured. Project Sunfall has been neutralized." "Excellent work, Commander," she replied. "And now we face our greatest challenge, building something better than what we've destroyed." "Yes, Madam President. The real work begins now." As human ships secured Dominion Prime, news of the Council's fall spread across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, people looked to the stars with a mixture of fear and hope, wondering what this new era would bring. The war had ended. But the true test of humanity's vision was just beginning. The crystalline chamber of the former Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 3 suns. Once a symbol of oppression, the massive hall had been redesigned, its imposing thrones replaced by a circular arrangement of equal seats. Today, representatives from 300 formerly council-controlled species gathered for the first assembly of the Galactic Confederation. Commander James Reyes stood at the central podium, his dress uniform crisp, his face composed despite the weight of the moment. 1 year had passed since he had watched his wife burn to death on this very floor. 1 year since humanity had unleashed a war plan centuries in preparation. "Representatives of the free worlds," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. 1 year ago, the Council executed Ambassador Elena Reyes for the crime of representing a species they deemed unworthy of equality. Today we gather to ensure such injustice never happens again." The hall remained silent, thousands of beings from across the galaxy listening intently. Many had lived their entire lives under Council rule, never daring to imagine a different order. "Humanity never wanted war," James continued. "We sought only to protect ourselves from an entity that had systematically eliminated dozens of emerging civilizations before us. When we discovered the truth about the Council's history, we faced a choice: submit to eventual destruction, or prepare to fight for our survival and the survival of others." On the massive display wall behind him appeared evidence recovered from the Council's own secure archives. Records showed peaceful species systematically undermined or eliminated when they developed technologies that threatened Council control. Resources had been channeled to benefit a small elite while outer worlds suffered. Military forces had created artificial conflicts to justify occupation of resource-rich systems. The Council maintained power through division and fear, James explained. They controlled technology, restricted communication between species, and taught each world that they alone had been granted special status. A murmur ran through the assembly as many recognized the tactics that had kept their own worlds isolated and dependent on Council. Authority Director Liana Blackwood, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, joined James at the podium. Her dark eyes surveyed the gathered representatives. What appeared to be humanity's miraculous technological leap was not miraculous at all, she explained. 30,000 years ago, the Council destroyed the Elysian civilization for developing technology that would have freed member worlds from resource dependency. They recorded the Elysians as having destroyed themselves through civil war. The display showed archaeological evidence discovered on Mars, the ruins of an Elysian outpost that had once existed in Earth's solar system. We found the truth buried beneath Martian soil, Blackwood continued. Elysian knowledge helped us prepare for inevitable conflict with their destroyers. We recovered their technologies, improved upon them, and built our defense strategy around systems the Council believed lost forever. Ambassador Meredith Drake, now 156 years old and supported by medical technology, rose from her seat in the Earth delegation. Despite her age, her voice carried clearly through the chamber. I was Earth's first contact with the Council 98 years ago, she said. I was imprisoned for sending a warning about their true nature. That warning allowed Earth to prepare, while appearing primitive and unthreatening. A hush fell over the assembly as the ancient diplomat continued. The Council believed humans were naive explorers, awed by their advanced civilization. In reality, each diplomatic mission gathered intelligence. Each trade agreement concealed surveillance. Each cultural exchange hid infiltration efforts. Across the chamber, representatives exchanged glances. Many had wondered how humanity had accomplished the impossible, defeating the Council so completely with seemingly minimal military action. The answer came from an unexpected source. A tall, blue-skinned figure rose from among the delegates. Admiral Zecht, once the Council's highest military commander, now a key witness to its crimes. I commanded the Council's forces for 2 centuries, he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. I believed we maintained peace and stability. The truth was hidden even from those of us who enforced Council will. He gestured toward the human delegation. When humans first appeared in Council records, I dismissed them as primitives. In reality, they had been watching us for decades, placing operatives throughout our society, preparing for a confrontation they hoped would never come. James returned to the podium, his expression solemn. The execution of Ambassador Reyes was not the cause of the Council's fall. It was merely the trigger for a response long prepared, a response designed not just to protect Earth, but to free the galaxy from an authority that had betrayed its founding principles millennia ago. The display shifted to show the proposed charter of the new Galactic Confederation. Its founding principles emphasized equal representation, technological freedom, and mutual defense. We offer a different vision, James said. Not human rule replacing Council rule, but true cooperation. Each species maintaining its sovereignty while working together for common progress. Around the chamber, delegates began to signal their approval. Species that had fought each other for centuries, under Council manipulation, now found common ground in their shared experience of liberation. The Assembly voted unanimously to formally dissolve what remained of the Council system. As for the fate of Vostar and the surviving Council leaders, the decision surprised many. Rather than execution, they were sentenced to live as cultural exchange observers on developing worlds, the very status they had attempted to force on humanity. Justice demands truth, not vengeance, James quoted from Elena's final recorded words. We break the cycle by making different choices than our oppressors. As the new Confederation Charter was signed, a memorial to Elena Reyes was unveiled at the center of the chamber, a simple monument bearing her final message. Remember this when the fire comes. Hours later, in the privacy of his quarters aboard the Retribution, James Reyes sat alone, studying reports from across the new Confederation. The transition from Council rule had been remarkably peaceful in most systems. Some outer worlds, long neglected, required humanitarian assistance. Former Council military units were being integrated into a new defensive force under joint command. His door chimed softly. Enter, he called. President Maxwell stepped inside, having traveled from Earth for the historic assembly. She carried a small wooden box inlaid with silver. Commander, she said formally, I wanted to deliver this personally. James took the box and opened it carefully. Inside lay a quantum data crystal, the same one that had been embedded in Elena's cells, transmitting her final moments back to Earth. Why? He asked simply. Because it belongs to you, she replied, and because you deserve to know the whole truth. James placed the crystal in a reader. The display activated, showing not just Elena's execution as he had seen before, but something more. A private recording she had made hours before her fatal meeting with the council. Elena's face filled the screen, her dark eyes looking directly at the camera as if seeing him across time and space. James, she began softly, if you're watching this, then things went as we feared they might. I want you to know that I chose this mission understanding all possibilities. James froze the playback, turning to the president with accusation in his eyes. You knew. You knew the council would execute her. Maxwell's expression remained calm but sympathetic. We suspected. Our intelligence indicated the council was looking for an excuse to make an example of a human representative. Elena volunteered, knowing she might become that example. Why wasn't I told? Because she requested you not be informed. She knew you would try to stop her or insist on taking her place. James unpaused the recording. Elena's voice continued. The council must be exposed for what it truly is, she said. If my death accomplishes that, then it has meaning. Don't let grief cloud what comes after. Build something better than what we destroy. She paused, emotion finally breaking through her composed exterior. I love you, James, I always will. Now finish what we started together. The recording ended. James sat in silence for a long moment before speaking. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. All the deception? The infiltration? The lives lost? President Maxwell moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars. The council burned one of our diplomats alive because they saw us as primitives to be controlled. Instead, they awakened something they couldn't comprehend. A species that had spent its entire history preparing for existential threats. She turned back to face him. Our intelligence suggests there are older powers beyond former council space, watching to see how we handle this victory. You believe there will be another war? I believe, Commander, that humanity must remain vigilant. The universe is older and darker than we imagined. But today, at least, the light has won. As night fell across the council capital, now being renamed Unity, citizens looked up at skies filled with ships from dozens of species. Former enemies now working together to rebuild what centuries of division had destroyed.